What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over the Hellfire Gala Event, where we actually do pick up with the next chapter, which is X-Corp number 2. Remember, when it comes to the Hellfire Gala Event, it is basically a Marvel crossover for the X-Men. And honestly, it's a different kind of crossover, where basically it is the mutants inviting humans, very important humans, to this party to basically say, look at what the mutant race can do if humans let mutants work. If humans actually work with mutants, then the world would be a better place. Because the mutants have accomplished a lot in the 1 year, or how many days it's been, since it became a nation. And so this is the mutant race saying, look at what we have accomplished. Now remember, at the end of our last video, we basically saw that the mutants were able to turn Mars into a living planet, meaning that if humans and mutants want to leave Earth and go to Mars, they can live there now. And that is a huge accomplishment. Now, with all that being said, today's video is going to focus on X-Corp. Now, this is only the second issue of X-Corp. Literally, they had one book. By the next one, it was a crossover. Like, instantly thrown into a crossover. Now, when it comes to X-Corp, you have to remember, X-Corp is all about the business side to the mutant race. So when Charles Xavier and Magneto and Apocalypse and a few other people basically made COPPA as a nation, Charles Xavier went out of his way to make a lot of different businesses across the world. And of course, X-Corp is the company that runs all those different businesses. And so basically, X-Corp is run by Monet and Angel, two characters who do kind of have a history in kind of running different things. Not really, but somewhat. Either way, Charles Xavier put those two characters in charge to run X-Corp, because X-Corp is just a company that's running all the different companies that Charles had made ever since COPPA had became a nation. And so as we jump into X-Corp, we actually do pick up with Monet. Now, this is basically us finding out that Monet has been dodging a lot of different phone calls, especially the ones that came from Charles Xavier, because Charles understands what she did in our last video, but of course he still wants to talk to her. Now remember, in our last video, Monet had to sacrifice a lab that was basically helping produce the drugs that the mutant race gives to other countries. The problem was, though, that lab was in the Savage Land. And the Savage Land is located in Antarctica. And that right there is a huge no-no, because the United Nations had a law saying that you cannot have any kind of farm in Antarctica at all. And so it was COPPA basically breaking that law. And so you had Monet actually had to sacrifice that lab to kind of make sure COPPA does not get in trouble for breaking that law. Now, the only reason why she really had to do that, well, really another reason, is because a character known as John Pierre was basically trying to blackmail Angel and tell Angel, if you don't give me a better deal, I'm going to tell the United Nations what you did. Because John Pierre was one of the few people who actually made a deal with Charles Xavier when COPPA became a nation, one of the many companies. Now, of course, because John Pierre felt like he's been a #1 supporter, he feels like he deserves a bigger pay, a bigger fat check. And of course, it was him trying to blackmail Angel to give him that bigger fat contract. And of course, it did not work out for him because Monet blew up the lab. And so now John Pierre really does not have any kind of proof at all. But either way, it's Charles calling Monet to tell her and Angel they need to basically shake a lot of hands from important people who run some very important companies, because it's Charles just trying to ease the tension that's basically been put on X-Corp thanks to Monet sacrificing that lab. Now that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Jamie Maddox and Trinary. Now Trinary is not actually at the party. She's kind of at the base of X-Corp, kind of running different things. But you do have Jamie, Angel, and Monet at the actual Hellfire Gala event. Now, Jamie and Trinary were both offered the chance to actually join the board. Here's the big problem though. Jamie has no idea about the different board meetings that Angel and Monet have today at the Hellfire Gala event. And that really bothers him because right now his powers, which is again being able to actually clone himself, is being used right now to kind of pass out food and drinks to the people who are, attending this party. But at the same time, he feels like him, the original self, should be at these board meetings. But of course, Angel and Monet are not actually telling him about the board meetings that he should be at, because kind of like Angel and Monet handle the more serious problems, while Jamie and Trinary handle the more lower risk problems that X-Corp could possibly face down the road. Now, some of these important meetings is really more of Monet and Angel trying to produce more board members, trying to recruit more board members. And so while they're going around having fun at the parties, they have to do these meetings as well. Like, for example, they have to meet up with Sunspot first. Now, Sunspot would be, honestly, maybe a good person to have on the board. And the reason why, because Sunspot has the experience. He has the knowledge of being a businessman. And of course, some of that knowledge did come from his father, but of course, it came from Sunspot putting himself out there as a businessman. And we have seen him be a businessman so many times in the past in Marvel Comics. And honestly, that is why I say he would be a great fit for a board member spot. And of course, is him saying, listen, I was basically recommended by other people who you are very close to, who are telling you you should give me a chance. But of course, it's kind of like, if they do say yes, they'll give him a call. But of course, it's not an official yes. Now, getting over to Jamie and also Trinary, you do have Jamie kind of explaining to Trinary that he's very upset that basically he was not invited to these board meetings, because him and Trinary, they were offered positions to be on the board. And he feels like if they're going to be on the board, they should be at these board meetings helping to pick out future board members. But of course, it's them kind of like not getting that chance. It's Monet and Angel not really inviting these two characters. And again, it feels like it's Angel and Monet pushing these characters to be in the background. Like, hey, you're part of the board, but at the same time, stay over there. Stay over there and everything will be okay. Cool, bye. But of course, for Jamie, that's not okay. And so he's like, you know what? I am going to break up one of these meetings. Now, that is the moment we actually do jump back over to Angel and Monet. And right now, they're having a meeting with Selene. Now, Selene is an old character. I mean, a really old character. She appeared back in New Mutants #9 back in, oh my God, what year was it? It was 1980s, I want to say. It was Volume 1 New Mutants. But either way, though, Selene is sometimes known as the first mutant. Now, the reason why I say sometimes, because a lot of times that title gets thrown around to a lot of different characters. And Selene is one of those characters. Now, with that being said, though, for right now, let's just say she is the first mutant. But either way, though, is Angel and Monet actually having a meeting with her and actually thinking about making her a board member, which is huge because Selene has been an enemy of the X-Men for years. But of course, back in House of X and Power of X, we saw a lot of bad guys were actually welcome to the island of Krakoa as a way of saying you have a second chance to help the mutant race become a great race. Really, this meeting is really more of her flirting with Angel in a way, kind of like, hey, Angel, listen, we got a pass. You know it. I know it. We could possibly work that pass out into a bright future. You should totally offer me a spot on the board. Like, honestly, she does bring up some good points, but at the same time, it's really more of her saying, hey, Angel, Come on, man. You know you want to kind of revisit this whole situation, man. Let's go. Come on now. Now, that is the moment we do kind of find out that basically Angel and Monet do have a meeting with the Strucker twins, Baron von Strucker's kids. Because remember, Baron von Strucker used to be a bad guy that belonged to Captain America. He was also part of Hydra, the Nazis, all of that right there. But basically, he had kids. And those kids are right here, which is Andrea and Andreas. Now, we actually met these characters back in our coverage over Norman Osborn's Thunderbolts team, where Andreas was actually back then calling himself the Swordsman. Now, when it comes to the twins, they are basically two characters who are mutants, but they can only activate their powers when they're next to each other, which honestly sucks. Now, with that being said, because these guys have a lot of hate on them for a lot of different reasons, it's Monet and Angel telling the twins, you will never get a spot on the board at all. Neither of you will, because you guys are literally the worst of the worst when it comes to companies, especially mutant companies, because you guys only work with humans. On top of that, you guys spread hate, especially to other races who are not white. And so it's Monet saying, I will never join you. Now, of course, it's them also saying, listen, you're saying that now, but sooner or later, you are going to be asking for money. But again, it's Monet and Angel. We will never ask for your money. So don't even worry about that at all. Now, the twins do have a meeting with a character known as Sarah St. John, and apparently Sarah St. John was supposed to have a meeting with Monet and Angel, but now Monet and Angel might cancel that meeting because she now has a meeting with the twins. And of course, anybody who has a meeting with the twins are instantly disgusting looking to Angel and Monet. But right after that, you do have Angel and Monet have another meeting, and that meeting is with no other than Mastermind. Now, we actually just saw Mastermind in a recent story for Hellions. Matter of fact, it's Hellions number 9 through 11. You have to read that 3-part storyline. It is honestly probably one of the best Mastermind and arcade storylines in recent years. But either way though, it's Mastermind right now asking for a spot on the board. Now, when it comes to Mastermind, you have to remember, he has the ability to play with your mind in a very interesting way, where he's able to make you believe that different things are actually happening to you when they're not. So he's able to make you believe that you are seeing something, or feel something, or taste something. He's able to play with your senses. And now with that being said, it's Mastermind saying, look, you two are probably the best business people on the entire island, alongside with Sunspot. But when it comes to your image, I can do something for you with that right there. Because no matter what you do, bad or good, it's all about make sure you look good. And so it's Mastermind saying, I can make your image of your company look good if you're able to give me a spot. And of course, he then leaves the meeting. Now, getting back over to the base of the X-Corp, where of course that's where Trinary's at the moment, somebody was able to actually get onto the base, and of course that person does not or not supposed to have access to the X-Corp base, and that person is Andrea Strucker, one of the Strucker twins. Now, the reason why she is here is because she's basically trying to find Monet to, of course, possibly kill Monet. But the problem is though, Andrea finds Trinary, and of course Trinary is especially not Monet. But at the same time though, this is Andrea saying, listen, one of the laws for COPPA is that mutants are not allowed to kill humans, but mutants can kill mutants. And so this is Andrea actually wanting to kill off Trinary and then hopefully find Monet later on. But that is the moment you have Monet actually being able to save Trinary by knocking out Andrea. Now, you do have Angel basically kind of have another meeting with Andreas Strucker, the other Strucker twin. Now, with that being said, Andreas is right now having a meeting with Sarah St. John. Now remember, Sarah St. John was apparently some important character, and of course at first we had no idea why she was so important. But this moment right here is really more telling us that basically she's an owner of a company, one of the big companies in the world, and she was just trying to make some connection with other companies or build a bond with other companies to kind of have a partner deal with some other companies. And so when it comes to COPPA, you have a lot of companies coming out of there. Now, most of those companies belong to Charles Xavier. Hence why we have X-Corp to kind of help run those companies that Xavier made. But there's also other companies out there that mutants run that don't belong to Charles Xavier. Of course, they belong to themselves, like Sunspot or even the Strucker twins. And so it was Sarah St. John trying to have a partnership deal made with a company that belongs to a mutant. And of course, she was able to actually make a deal with the Strucker twins. Now, of course, after Sarah leaves, you do have Angel and Andreas have a conversation. And basically, this is Angel kind of calling out Andreas for being sneaky, shameless, and also a bad person for the mutant race, because it's him just trying to make easy money. And of course, that easy money comment comes with the idea of the Strucker twins making a deal with Sarah. Now, with all that being said, that is the moment you do have Angel actually confront Andreas about the idea of where his sister is, Andrea. And of course, it is Andreas saying he has no idea. But it's also Angel saying you do know where she's at. You know she tried to sneak onto our base to hopefully catch Monet off, but of course that failed. Now, you do have Andreas saying that if they were not at that party, Andreas would actually fight against Angel. But that is the moment you have Angel tell Andreas, dude, we have not been at the party for a very long time, because Mastermind, once again, was playing mind games on someone's mind, this time Andreas' mind, and he made Andreas believe the entire time him and Angel were talking that they were at a party, but in reality, they weren't. Now, of course, after that, we do see that basically Monet and Angel were able to kind of get rid of the Strucker twins. Now, with them being able to get rid of the Strucker twins, you do have Angel and Monet basically have this kind of beach meeting with all their potential board members. And of course, that would be Trinary, Jamie Maddox, and also Mastermind. But with this ending right here, we can actually confirm that Mastermind will become a board member. And so him, Monet, and Angel are technically the only three people who have become official board members of X-Corp. Trinary and Maddox right now are still kind of like maybes, even though they just helped out Monet and Angel to take down the Strucker twins. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So with that being said, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. And if you do, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.